The Canadian Taxpayers Federation is calling on Ottawa to implement a sunshine list as thousands of federal bureaucrats are now receiving over $100,000 a year in salary. Now, to discuss this in more detail is the federal director of the CTF, Franco Terrazzano, who joins us from Ottawa. Franco, how many federal employees are we talking about now receiving a six-figure income than prior to the pandemic?
So we dug up documents that show that more than 114,000 federal government employees received more than $100,000 in 2021. And that means that there were 45,000 more federal government bureaucrats receiving a six-figure salary last year than there were before the pandemic, and how this is just more proof that we are not all in this together. And what we have seen is a tale of two pandemics, one full of private sector pain with pay cuts, job losses, even business losses, and the other full of economic gain for government bureaucrats and politicians.
Now, there were also a number of federal bureaucrats who received more than one pay raise during the pandemic.
This must really feel like a slap in the face to the many private sector taxpayers who struggled through the pandemic to know that they have a higher tax burden to fund government pay raises. Now, we also found that more than 300,000 federal government employees received at least one pay raise during the pandemic and lockdowns. There were no pay cuts in the federal government, but that also is just the tip of the iceberg, because members of parliament, they gave themselves three pay raises during the pandemic. And we also have to look at the crown corporations. The Bank of Canada gave itself $45 million in pay raises and bonuses during the pandemic as inflation took off. Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation gave itself nearly $60 million in bonuses and pay raises during the pandemic. And the CBC, they also gave themselves $51 million in bonuses and pay raises during the pandemic and lockdowns in 2020 and 2021.
Thanks so much, Franco. That was Franco Terrazzano, Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, joining us from Ottawa.